I demand you sign this.
I can't do it!
Tear it, and you'll face the consequences.
The high mountain air was crisp and clean as Elias Stone rode into the dusty frontier town with a pocket full of saved gold and a dream of buying fertile farmland. He had spent years trapping furs and living alone in the rugged wilderness, and now he wanted to stake a claim on a piece of valley soil to build a prosperous ranch. The town square buzzed with farmers and speculators, but his attention snagged on a crude wooden stage where a wiry man named Silas Gentry stood beside a trembling, barefoot young woman in a tattered wedding gown. Silas bellowed that he was settling a debt by offering his indentured niece as a bride to the highest bidder, and Elias felt a chill of disgust ripple through his hardened soul. The auctioneer, a sweaty man with a frantic gavel, began calling for bids on the first plot of land just as Elias lifted his hand to scratch his jaw in deep thought. In a fateful blur of noise and confusion, the auctioneer slammed his gavel and declared that the mountain man had successfully bid on the broken bride instead of the 20-acre pasture. Elias stepped forward, his voice booming that there had been a terrible mistake, but Silas shoved the girl toward him and vanished into the jeering crowd with a sack of dirty coins. She did not scream or beg. She simply stood there with hollow eyes, her thin shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow, and Elias realized he could not leave her to the vultures. With a heavy sigh, he wrapped his own worn coat around her shivering frame and lifted her onto his horse, ignoring the scandalized whispers of the townsfolk who watched. They rode in absolute silence up the winding mountain trail, and the only sound was the wind mourning through the pines and the occasional hiccup of a suppressed sob from the girl. His cabin was a sturdy log structure overlooking a crystal-clear creek, and he helped her down gently, noticing the way she flinched at the slightest unexpected touch from his calloused hands. He gave her the small bedroom with the quilt his mother had made, and he slept in the barn that first night, giving her space and praying she would not run off into the bear-filled darkness. For 3 days, she did not speak a single word. She just sat by the fire, staring into the flames while he cooked beans and bacon and placed a full plate beside her without any demand. On the 4th morning, she finally whispered her name was Clara, and the sound of her fragile voice cracked something wide open inside the mountain man's guarded heart. He learned she had been abused by Silas ever since her parents died of fever, and she was sold off when she refused to marry a cruel saloon owner twice her age. Elias told her she was safe here, that he had no use for a forced bride, and he would help her find a new life in the spring if that was her desire. Something shifted in her gaze then. A tiny spark of disbelief mingled with desperate hope, and she reached out to touch his hand for the first time without fear. He taught her how to gather eggs from the hens, how to knead sourdough, and how to whistle for the chestnut mar, and her laughter gradually began to chase away the cabin's shadows. One evening, a violent storm trapped them inside, and they sat by the hearth sharing stories of their childhoods, the firelight dancing on the walls like forgotten promises. She admitted she had always dreamed of a home with a garden of wildflowers, and the next day he cleared a patch of sunny earth and handed her a packet of seeds with a shy smile. He saw her strength when she faced down a rattlesnake near the woodpile with a shovel, and his admiration grew deeper than the roots of the ancient oaks outside. Clara began to hum old mountain ballads while she churned butter, and the sound filled the cabin with a warmth Elias had never known in all his solitary years. He would catch himself watching her brush her hair by the window, and a fierce, protective tenderness would rise in his chest until he had to look away to catch his breath. When a traveling preacher passed through the valley, Elias asked him to stay for supper, and afterward, Clara quietly confessed that she was starting to feel whole again. Silas Gentry returned like a bad penny one afternoon, flanked by 2 armed thugs and demanding his property back, his piggy eyes gleaming with drunken malice and greed. Elias stepped onto the porch with his rifle cradled in his arms and told Silas that Clara was no man's property and he would have to go through him to touch her. Clara stood in the doorway, her chin lifted high, and she declared in a clear, steady voice that she would rather die free than be his slave another single day. A tense standoff crackled in the air until the preacher stepped forward and reminded Silas that a witnessed, coercive auction had no legal standing in this territory, and his men shuffled uneasily. Silas lunged, but Elias moved faster than a striking cougar, disarming the brute and sending him tumbling down the dusty slope with a warning never to return. In the aftermath, Clara threw her arms around Elias's neck and sobbed with relief, and he held her as if she were the most precious treasure he had ever been trusted to protect. That evening, with the stars scattered like diamond dust across the velvet sky, he knelt by the garden of blooming wildflowers and asked Clara to be his true and willing bride. She said yes before he could even finish the question, and her radiant smile outshone every sunrise he had ever witnessed from the highest ridge. They were married by the creek, with the preacher officiating, and the only guests were a family of curious deer who watched from the forest's edge with gentle, liquid eyes. Life on the mountain blossomed into a rhythm of shared chores, stolen kisses in the hayloft, and the sound of Clara's songs mingling with the babble of the creek. Elias built a larger bedroom onto the cabin with a window seat where she could read the books he ordered from the distant trading post, and he never tired of watching her face light up. The farmland he finally purchased in the valley became a thriving ranch with strong horses and fat cattle, and Clara helped him brand the calves with a steady hand and a bold laugh. Their love story spread through the territory as a legend of how a mistaken auction bid led to the most unbreakable bond anyone had ever witnessed on the frontier. Clara told Elias one night, her head resting on his shoulder, that she had been so broken she believed she was beyond repair, but he had shown her that shattered pieces can form a stunning mosaic. He replied that she had saved him from a life of lonely emptiness, and his heart had been the one truly broken until she walked barefoot into his world and mended it with her gentle courage. They danced under the full moon on their 5th anniversary, and the wolves in the distance howled a chorus that sounded suspiciously like a blessing from the wild, ancient land itself. Neighbors would travel for miles just to share a meal at their table, because the love in that cabin was a tangible warmth that nourished every hungry soul who entered. Elias taught Clara to shoot a bow, and soon she could hit a pinnacle from 50 paces, a skill that made her feel powerful and filled him with immense, beaming pride. She, in turn, taught him to read poetry, and his gruff voice stumbling over romantic verses became her favorite melody on long winter evenings by the crackling fire. When a hard drought threatened the valley, Elias never wavered in his faith, and Clara stood beside him hauling water from the deep well, her strength matching his own. They adopted an orphan wolf pup, nursed it back to health, and named it Chance, which became a living symbol of the unexpected gifts that can arise from the most chaotic moments. Clara discovered she was expecting their first child on a morning when the wild roses bloomed, and she told Elias by handing him a tiny pair of hand-knitted booties she had secretly made. The tough mountain man wept unashamedly, kneeling to press his ear to her belly, and promised the unborn babe that they would always know unconditional love and safety. Their son, born with his father's steady gaze and his mother's tender smile, drew his first breath as a golden eagle soared overhead, sealing the blessing with a piercing cry. Clara and Elias raised 3 more children in that cabin, and each one learned the story of how a wrongful auction had delivered the greatest gift to their family line. Silas Gentry was eventually swallowed by the consequences of his own wickedness, and the town never forgot the day the mountain man stood up to tyranny with nothing but courage and a heart full of righteous love. Years later, when asked about the secret to their enduring bond, Elias would simply say that he stopped looking for land and found a home in a pair of frightened brown eyes. Clara would add that true healing begins when someone offers you a safe place to fall apart and the patience to gather yourself back together without judgment or haste. The wildflower garden grew into a sprawling meadow that attracted hummingbirds and butterflies, and the couple would sit on a hand-carved bench and watch the sunset paint the sky in hues of hope and gratitude. Their great-grandchildren would gather around the hearth to hear the tale of the accidental bride, and every retelling added a new layer of awe to the legacy of steadfast devotion. If you ever visit that high mountain valley, you can still see the original cabin, now a hallowed monument where the wind whispers that love can bloom from the most improbable seeds of chaos. Elias's rifle hangs above the mantel, a reminder that true strength is not in violence, but in the fierce will to protect those who cannot defend themselves from a cruel and indifferent world. Clara's faded wedding dress rests in a cedar chest, the torn lace carefully mended with golden thread to symbolize that broken things can become more beautiful after they have been lovingly repaired. Their story teaches us that sometimes the universe conspires in bewildering errors to force two shattered souls together so that they can become each other's perfect, unplanned salvation. I hope this tale of unexpected redemption has stirred something deep within you, and if it has touched your heart, please show your support by subscribing to Stories Hub Official right now. Your subscription fuels our ability to bring more beautiful, heartfelt narratives like this to life, and we would be honored to have you join our storytelling family on this incredible journey. Let us know in the comments which moment made you smile or tear up the most, because your insights create a vibrant community of dreamers who cherish the power of a well-told story. And if you believe that every broken bride deserves a fierce, gentle mountain man to stand by her side, then smash that like button to spread the message of healing love far and wide across the digital frontier. From our cozy cabin of creativity to your screen, we send our deepest gratitude, and we cannot wait to share our next original Western romance with you very, very soon.